Have you ever failed at something because you didn't even try? That's what we're talking about on this episode of the Driving with Rob podcast. I've titled the name of this episode, Try. It's a very simple word, 3 letters, try. But how many times have we failed to do something because we didn't even try? But before I get into the podcast, I want to encourage you, if you're listening to this podcast and you enjoy this podcast, you like this podcast, please click on subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. Subscription is free. What subscribing will do is we'll send you a notification, if you have your notifications turned on, every time I upload a new episode. And I know most people listen to it probably on their cell phones or tablets. But you'll get a notification every time I upload a new episode. And I'll just be honest with you, I'm trying to get more subscribers. So if you would click on the subscribe button, I would appreciate it. So, what I was thinking about today is the word try. It's such a simple word, but it's a very powerful word. How many times have you wanted to do something, but you didn't do it because you had already convinced yourself before you even started that you couldn't do it? You didn't even start because you had already convinced yourself that you couldn't do it. But if there is anything in your life that you really, really want to do, that you're passionate about, that you really, really want, try. Just try. Now, I'm not telling you to go do something stupid. I'm old and fat. My knees hurt. I can't work as hard as I used to, and I'm aware of this. So I'm not going to go out and try to do something that it's not me talking myself into it. I know that I'm physically incapable of playing in the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball. This is not something I need to try, okay? Because it would be stupid. But no, what I'm talking about is things that you can probably do, but you don't know you can do it because you haven't tried. You've heard that old phrase, you never know till you try. Well, it's true. Take this podcast, for example. I've been doing this podcast now for, how long have I been doing it? 4 or 5 years. And as some of you know, as many of you may know, I was in radio many, many years ago. And I always wanted to get back into some kind of announcing, voice work, something. And then about 5 years ago, I started hearing more and more about podcasting. And you really didn't need a lot of tools to get started. A decent microphone, a reasonably quiet environment, and a laptop with some audio editing software is nice. And you need to have something to talk about. You need to have something to say. So I studied it for at least a year. Thought about it for at least a year. Watched YouTube videos. How do I start a podcast? How do I start doing it? And the thing that came back to me time after time after time was try. Try. The best way to get started in podcasting is to start. You just have to start. You have to try. And I have counseled young people, younger people, my daughter in particular, in this Gen Z culture, who have just given up. I can't find a decent job. Well, where have you looked? Well, I've been looking online, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that, I don't want to do the other. Well, what are your goals? Well, my goals are to get a decent paying job so I can get a nice apartment, maybe a nice car, or at least a reliable car, and basically get my life started. And I have given this piece of advice, and it's never received well, but it's true. When I say people are not going to discover you by accident, they're not going to accidentally come across your information one day and say, wow, I need to hire this person. I need to give them a 6-figure income in a nice office walking distance from their apartment and really only expect them to show up 2 or 3 days a week. No, nobody's going to do that for you. Nobody is going to come out of the woodwork and give it to you. You have to try to find the kind of job you want. If you want to start a business, how do you start? Well, first of all, you have to try. You can't wait for a business to land in your lap and you just take it over and start running it. I'm always impressed and fascinated by people who write books and are able to make a living as authors. And my cousin's wife wrote a book. She's maybe written 2 books by now. And she didn't get rich from it. But she completed the book. And we were at a family reunion, and my daughter was so impressed that she was a writer. And she said, I've always wanted to be an author. How do you start? And she said, write. Start now. Start writing. You have to try. Nobody's going to give you a book deal for an idea for a book unless you're already a very famous published author. You know, I'm sure Stephen King gets approached every day. Would you please write a book about this? Would you please write another book and submit it to us as soon as you can? Because these publishers make money off Stephen King. They don't care about Stephen King. But when she said, write, start writing, what she meant was, if you want to become an author, you need to try to become an author. You have to try. And I remember, I'm going to give you an anecdote from my high school experience of being on the track team. Now, I never was a great athlete, but I was kind of athletic when I was in my late teens. And I had short legs then, just like I do now. So I wasn't really a runner. I did shot put, discus, even tried pole vaulting, which I was terrible at, by the way. And my friend Jeff, basically, he and I taught ourselves how to pole vault because we didn't have the greatest coach in the world either. So we kind of taught ourselves how to pole vault. I didn't know how to pole vault. I'd seen it on TV. So we're out there every day practicing. We're trying to learn how. When we had our first couple of track meets, we would watch the other teams, pole vaulters. And back in 1978, 79, in our district, Bunker Hill High School had the best pole vaulters. So we would watch them And then the next time we had a practice, Jeff would say, "Did you see what that guy from Bunker Hill was doing?" I said, "Yeah, I don't know if I can do that." He said, "I'm going to try it. I'm going to try. You spot me, make sure I don't land flat on my back off the cushion that I was supposed to land on. Make sure I don't break my neck or my back when I try this, but I'm going to try." And my friend Jeff broke our high school's pole vault record by senior year. But we both started out not knowing how to do it. Not even how to do it, pretend. But he tried. Well, one day, my friend Ronnie came to me and he said, "We want you to take one leg of the mile relay." I said, "You're kidding, right?" He said, "No, we want you to try it." I said, "Why do you want me to try it?" And he said, "Well, there's me," and he named the other two guys. And he said, "We need a fourth." Because the guy who was our fourth, I think he just quit the track team. I think he just stopped showing up. And they said, "We need somebody." And I said, "I'm not a runner. I can't run." And Ronnie said, "Yeah, but we know that you won't give up and that you'll do the best you can. All we want you to do is try." And again, I was always too short-legged to do any distance running. I could not outrun. Now, over very short distances, like a dwarf from Lord of the Rings, very dangerous over short distances. In a 40-yard dash, I could beat most people because my legs were so short. I could get them pumping faster and quicker than the long-legged runners. By the time they were striding out, I was already had made it 40 yards. But they wanted me to run one leg of a mile relay, which is a quarter of a mile. And I told my friend Ronnie, I said, "I don't think I can do it." He said, "All we want you to do is try." So I tried. And I didn't break any school records. And that was really the only running event I was in, was one leg of the mile relay. And even though I had no confidence in myself, my friend Ronnie had confidence in me. He said, "All we want you to do is try." I think probably the actual words were, "Come on, man, we need you." Like that. Shamed me into it. And as it turned out, I pretty much was able to hold my own in one leg of the mile relay. I wasn't great, but I didn't hurt the team. I didn't put the team behind. And by the last couple of track meets of my senior year in high school, I was actually turning in a respectable time in the quarter mile relay, or in the mile relay, a quarter of a mile. But I didn't think I could do it, so I never tried. You want to be a millionaire? Try to become a millionaire. Just try. It's not going to just happen. You have to actively try. You want to become a professional singer? You have to do the things necessary to become a professional singer. You have to try. You want to learn how to play the guitar? You have to try. You want to learn to play the guitar? You have to try. You want to do better in school? You want to do better in math? Math is my weakest subject. You want to do better? You need to try to do better. And pretty much any endeavor in life. If it's something you want to do, or something you want to be good at, you have to try. You're never going to start a podcast if you don't try. And that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you downloading. And like I said at the beginning of this episode, if you would click on the subscribe button, it doesn't cost you anything, but it will give you a notification every time I download a new one, and you'll know to go check it out. Okay? And thanks again for listening. I'll talk to you next time. Bye now.